So as we all know, because we've talked about it at length many times already, Mark Esper, Donald Trump's former defense secretary, his book came out on Tuesday of this week. And we've already had a ton of revelations from this book. Basically, Esper coming out snitching on all the horrible things he saw from Trump that he kept to himself during his time in office because, of course, reports say he was afraid that if he spoke out about it at the time, he would be replaced with, quote, a clown. And given what we know about Trump, he may have literally replaced him with a clown. So Esper kept his mouth shut, didn't want to make any waves, and saved it, of course, till he could write a book and obviously become a bestseller with it. But there's an interesting pattern that has emerged here, and Esper is just the latest, I guess, piece of that pattern. And that is that so many, in fact, most of Donald Trump's former cabinet officials have all turned against him since leaving office. Here's a list so far. This is just a partial list. Mark Esper, John Bolton, John Kelly, James Mattis, Rex Tillerson, Bill Barr, Omarosa, folks, has come out against Trump again, although they've always had this on-again, off-again relationship. But when you start to look at this, right, all of these people that were closest to Donald Trump, every one of them has come out against him since they left office. Or, on the other side of it, the people that have not come out against him, what's happening with those people? Well, Mark Meadows is under several investigations right now for voter fraud and his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. John Eastman, also part of that investigation. Rudy Giuliani, two separate investigations going on into him. Manafort had to get a presidential pardon. Roger Stone had to get a presidential pardon. Steve Bannon had to get a presidential pardon. So you've got two options if you've worked for Donald Trump. Either you eventually come out against him, or you're probably going to be under criminal investigation at some point. That's what we're seeing. That's the dichotomy here. If you haven't already come out against Trump, you can better believe it's probably because you're under criminal investigation for something, or you had to go begging for a pardon, so now you can't piss him off because, he saved your life. Is that not fascinating to you, though? Because honestly, I find that absolutely intriguing that is what has happened with the people that served with him. Now, granted, there's a few that have been totally quiet. Betsy DeVos, you're not hearing anything from her. Ben Carson, relatively quiet since leaving office. They're not saying one thing one way or another. But for the most part, people have either completely turned against him or they're waiting to see if they're going to go to jail. That doesn't seem like a good outcome either way, right? And honestly, I wish that these MAGA diehards out there, not just the public, but the lawmakers standing by Donald Trump, I wish they would look at this and realize there's no good outcome for you. Look at everybody that has kissed Donald Trump's ass over the years. Tell me which one of them looks like they're living their best life right now. Huh? Which one? The answer is none of them, except for his kids, of course. Of course, they just had to settle the big lawsuit up in D.C., for misusing the Trump inaugural funds, so they're not even out of the woods either. Nobody that throws their lot in with Donald Trump ends up successful. Nobody ends up happy. Nobody ends up with their, sunshine and rainbows, my life is great now. Michael Cohen, another great example. He actually did both. He served time in jail and now has turned against Donald Trump. He's putting his life back together. But I think he would also agree, and I would love to actually get his insight into this, but nobody who works with Trump ends up with their happily ever after. So take that as whatever warning you'd like to take it as, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan. It doesn't end well for anyone. And if you think it's going to be different for you, then you clearly haven't been paying attention.
This is Hattie. Hattie wants to know why you have not subscribed to our channel. You obviously like our videos, so do us a favor and subscribe.